everyone, John Panio here with another video. Today we're just going to be going over some of the issues of the game that I think that Project Moon should fix, because as someone who's played this game for quite a while, the system, I can say I understand it, but for new players that start the game, such as my friends who recently played, they are absolutely lost and confused. Part of the issue is they definitely skip the tutorial, but even after they go back and read the tutorial, some of the stuff aren't quite intuitive with their UI. A prime example of this is egos. Now, egos in the game has, this lovely thing called a passive, and if you did not know better, most people would think that this passive is activated right from the beginning of the battle if you have these egos equipped. But what the game I don't think tells you or doesn't explain in good detail is that the passives only activate if you use the ego first. So that means if you want to gain access to these passives, you have to use the ego first. And when I first started playing, I did not know that. I thought that if you just equip the ego by default, you gain the passive at the start of the battle, but that's not the case. A second thing that isn't really intuitive is the UI here. When you have these egos equipped, your affinities, weaknesses, and strength changes, but if you have two egos equipped, do they stack? Of course they stack, but there's no way of checking how badly your resistances are. For example, I'm fatal to pride ×2 and I'm normal to envy, but then I have to go over here and go like, well, I endure 0.75 pride, so I'm only 1.25 fatal, and then now I'm fatal to envy. So stuff like that, that's not very intuitive, so I can't really check at a quick glance what is happening here with my resistances. And if I just click on my identities, it doesn't really say. It gives me level and rarity, and if I click on this, it just allows me to filter things, but overall I can't see the stats that are useful. Another thing that is kind of really counterintuitive, I would say, is the status effects. And what do I mean by status effects? Well, let me give you an example. Alright, let's take a look. So, a thing that's really confusing about this game is the status effects and what they do. And a part of it is certain things are broken. And let me explain. Paralyze says it fixes the power of X coins to 0 for one turn. That means, if I have 3 paralyze on, the enemy's going to toss 3 coins, and those 3 coins are going to hit 0. But what isn't working is that paralyze as a status effect just is broken, it's bugged. When my character applies paralyze, it fizzles at the end of the turn, so that means I don't get to use this effect. So I'm pretty sure paralyze is bugged. But another thing is, for example, poise. Poise states, on hit, gain a potency-based chance to deal critical damage, reducing the count by 1 if successful. At the end of the turn, reduce the count by 1. What does this all mean? Does this mean it's increasing critical chance? Does this mean increasing critical damage? From what it looks like, it says increase the chance to do critical damage. So does that mean I'm just increasing my chance to do critical damage? And is it like by how much? It doesn't really say. Like, is poise good or is poise bad? From what my understanding is, right now poise kind of sucks, and I don't understand what the numbers are. Another thing, for example, where the game doesn't really specifically say, is charge. An example is charge is a resource that used by certain skills for additional effects. Its count can go up to 20, turn end, lower count by 1. One thing that I don't like about this is that characters need to reach a certain amount of charge for them to be able to use a skill, and then when they use that skill, it gets a certain effect, and if they don't have enough charge, it just doesn't get this effect. My question is, why is the count always going down? Why is it that this just can't stay at whatever the count is, so that way you don't have to lower the count every single turn? Because this is just kind of feels bad, because if an enemy staggers you, you continuously lose another count for no reason, and it's just one of those things where I'm just like, why is it like this? But the status effect, completely a different conversation for another time. But just to give you guys an example, there are just certain things in this game that either A, aren't really explained properly, B, bugged and not working, or C, just doesn't really make sense, and that's just the status effect. Another thing is with the UI. The thing that is a little bit, confusing is this right here. When I go over to a battle. Let me give you an example. So an example in this is this. Let's go with this. Paralysis isn't working, so I have Ishmael. She's got a skill that has paralysis, and let's just hope she uses it and isn't gonna fizzle. Did she fizzle? Oh god, I can't tell. All right, well, let's try this again. We're gonna keep an eye on our Ishmael. All right, yeah. Do your skills, cool. Eviscerate, cool, big damage, lovely. Keep going, Quake rounds, okay. Okay, so you see, paralysis is there. I inflicted paralysis on that enemy. 3 counts. Turn ends, paralysis is just gone. So as you can see, paralysis is just disappeared. And another thing is, for example, tremor. When hit by attacks that burst tremor, raise the stagger threshold by 16 last 3 turns. So what this means is, in this specific battle, if I want to burst this guy's tremor, I would neither need to use, Heathcliff's 3rd skill, Upheaval, which has on hit burst tremor, or I would have to use Ishmael's suppress to burst tremor. But the issue is, in this battle, I don't get to select the order in which my units hit the enemy. It just goes by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to beginning. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, back to 1. And there's no way for me to be able to select, the units. And 3, 4 is actually a stage where people struggle with, because either A, they haven't built their team properly, or B, they have a good team comp and they're just getting unlucky because they can't trigger the status's effect that they want. And I do believe that this game should have a toggle system. I honestly, personally think that all battles should be abnormality battles. They should act like abnormality battles and just leave the win rate and damage on. If you leave these 2 on, people can be lazy and still win rate and damage through, the dungeon, instead of having to drag through it. I think you can still leave the drag function through if you want it to, do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 and let it do its thing in order. But I do think you should give more control to the players to be able to treat these battles like an abnormality battle, because stage 3, 4 is a little bit of a luck sack, because either you have a team that is so strong that luck doesn't matter, or you have a team that's just weak enough that if you had control, you'd be able to beat the stage, but because you don't have control, it sucks. And another thing to note is that the defensive options in this game really sucks, and let me explain why. Well, for example, let's just go here. As you can see, Otis right now is completely struggling against that enemy. So in reality, I should not be really using Otis to be attacking. But if I don't use Otis to attack, what are my other options? Either A, use an ego to win the clash, which I don't have, or C, defend. So okay, sure, I'll click defend, but the problem is, if I click defend, it becomes useless because no one is targeting her. So no one is targeting Otis. So this defense skill is just a whiff skill. She just does nothing for this turn. So she feels completely useless. So if that's the case, then what the heck? If she's gonna do nothing, then I'm better off just having her attack. Because it's either A, do nothing and defend, or B, risk an attack that will most likely mess you up. So the options when you're in these situations are kind of terrible. One thing I wish they added was, I wish I could do a defense and then drag the defense, over with my speed, right? With my speed to an enemy who has initiative and use that to block a skill. That would be good. But I can't really do that in here. And you could probably do that in abnormality, but even in abnormality, your defense options just really suck in the game. Let's just say, for example, we play this game, big brain it, our attack option is terrible, we do a defense option, great. Then we go into the next stuff, it sucks because now she is struggling, and she is struggling because she chose a defense option. If Otis doesn't choose a defense option, she's got a neutral favor on these units. But if I choose a defense option for Otis, then her options become struggling. So that sucks. So alright, if that's the case, I'll do defend on her too. I go into here, now he is struggling. So if I don't do any like defense options, let's just go straight attack. We go struggling, neutral, struggling, unopposed, unopposed. But if I start doing, defensive options, we go into struggling, neutral, neutral, neutral. So let's just say move that into defensive option, but now this becomes struggling, so let's just change this into defensive option. And then we have a neutral and a neutral. Alright, cool. So this is how the UI and also how the battle gameplay is a little bit annoying because certain things aren't clear. We have issues where defense option really sucks. We have certain things that are bugged, that aren't working, and we have certain situations where things aren't being, clearly explained, and because of how the ordering works, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. So I personally think that there is definitely solutions to all of these issues, and I don't like to be a person that just complains and doesn't offer any solutions. I like to offer solutions. So a simple fix where, in cases where we have situations where we have characters that can inflict tremor but can't do, tremor burst, just have this battle play out as an abnormality battle. Let us pick what we want, and if we're lazy, just let us win right through it. And if we really want to, you can let us drag, like just leave it in. If you really want to, let us drag, but also let us choose this battle like an abnormality where I can drag my skill onto the enemy so that way I can, big brain it if I have to. Either have it toggle or just have it always be an abnormality battle and just give us the option to drag through. Just give us the option to drag through. Like this is like a gimmick, just all abnormality battle, leave that in, and if we want to drag, sure, but give us the option to, select it. The next thing is status effects. Oh god, please fix those. Poise feels so bad. I don't know what poise really does. It's worded in a way that makes no sense, and from what people have data mined from it, it sounds like it's terrible. Like, just be a bit more transparent. Just be like, just be like, each stack of poise increases crit rate by 20%, or each stack of poise increases crit damage by 20%, or each stack of poise increases damage and crit chance by 10%. If it was word like that, easy, in my mind, great. And then you would just have to, in some sort of a wiki, be like, it's additive or multiplicative, just stuff like that. Simplify the status effect. The next thing about status effect is, fix the paralysis. Paralysis is bugged, not working, but, that's just something that just has to get fixed eventually. Not a big deal. But another thing that would definitely help with quality of life change is also in the mirror dungeon. Because when you're in the mirror dungeon and you're trying to build a team, you get to gain access to recruiting characters, right? So one of the situations that does happen is when you go to the mirror dungeon, just go into the mirror dungeon. When you go into the mirror dungeon, you get to pick your characters. And once you pick your characters, you have, your 3 base characters. But what ends up happening is once you try to add new characters to your team, you can no longer see what affinities your team has and what affinities your team has and doesn't have in the battle. Because say for example, very easily, if I go into this stage, I can see, what affinities I have and I don't have, and that I can play around with to, figure out what I'm missing. In Mirror Dungeon, this functionality isn't there. You either you remember what affinities your units use and what affinities your units reduce, or you gotta look up a guide and figure out, what affinities you can use. This UI is missing in Mirror World, and it's, it's a nice quality of life change to have in the Mirror World. Obviously, you can pretty much complete Mirror World without having to really worry about your resources here, but just having that in the Mirror World will just make things a little bit more cleaner and make things bit more consistent and more transparent for people. Because hopefully, ideally, what will happen is eventually Mirror Dungeon gets to the point where it gets really hard, and then you really have to, think about team building, affinities once again. The other thing that I would say will quickly be, well, I wouldn't say a quick fix. Obviously, coding and programming everything in the game isn't going to be easy, but one thing that definitely has to get fixed, or ideally I would like to get fixed, is just the ego UI. The ego UI just definitely needs a little bit of rework, I would like to be able to see all these weaknesses on my character, like as a stat sheet. So if I click onto them, then I'll be able to see, oh, my character is now fatal to this, enduring this, fatal to this, but because you've stacked it with this, it, you know, will manually adjust the numbers to show like, oh, I'm weak and strong to this now, and it's offset by this other ego, which will make things a little bit easier. Overall though, I still believe the game is a very enjoyable game. I will say that it is a unfinished game for a couple reasons. One, obviously you don't have 12 egos that you can get in the store for your 12 sets of characters. That's one. Another one is your sinners. Faust and Otis are the two characters that don't have a 3-star equivalent right now, so they're the only ones that are missing a 3-star. They have 2 stars. There's no 3 stars for them. And last but not least, obviously, in terms of content, we're still missing things that can make the game replayable, because all you do right now is, you know, you just play your mirror dungeons and that's kind of it. Obviously, after you beat the chapter 3, there's not much else to do, and I'm kind of okay with that. The game is in its infancy and I've really been enjoying it. There are definitely some bugs, kinks, and issues to work out, but they're not game breaking. They're more quality of life changes, you know, outside of, you know, certain things not working in the game like paralysis. But with that being said, Project Moon has done a great job. I've really enjoyed the game, really having fun with it, and hopefully they continue to make more content. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, or anything that I've missed out, please let me know down in the comment section down below. You know, let me know what some of the issues you had with this game, what are some things that you would like to see the company change. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Anyways, I'm signing off. I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.